This is HFY Vanguard, where humanity proves its place among the stars. Today they said she wasn't human, until she whispered, "I dream too." Lieutenant Jackson Reed smelled the station before he saw it. Burnt wires, industrial disinfectant, and beneath it all, the acrid stench of fear, like sweat trapped too long in recycled air. The kind of fear that clung to a soldier's skin even after a hot shower, the kind that made grown men check their rifles twice before walking into the unknown. His boots clanged against the docking platform of Aurelia 7 each step, echoing in the hollow belly of a facility that had seen better centuries. The hull groaned like a dying whale as the transport disengaged, leaving him alone on rust-stained decking. Aurelia was supposed to be a government outpost, a node of science and order on the edge of controlled space. Instead, it looked like a graveyard held together by tape and denial. Meteor scars pocked at its surface, and entire sections of plating wore rust like leprosy rust on a station that shouldn't even allow oxygen exposure. It was wrong. All of it was wrong. Reed adjusted the collar of his uniform, already damp with the cloying humidity that seemed to ooze from the walls. His hand strayed to the weight in his pocket, a tiny metal soldier, worn smooth by 20 years of guilt and memory. He squeezed it once, grounding himself in ritual, then forced his shoulders square. Another mission, another mess someone else had made. His orders were simple enough: inspect an artifact recently recovered from deep space salvage. Catalog report return. Nothing about the air of rot pressing in from every bulkhead. Nothing about the metallic taste of dread crawling up his throat. "Lieutenant Reed." The voice startled him. A young corporal materialized from the shadows, posture rigid but eyes betraying nerves. His uniform was too clean for this dump, like a parade dress awkwardly stuffed into a landfill. The boy's Adam's apple bobbed when he spoke again. "They're waiting for you in Medical Bay 3. Reed frowned. "Medical, my orders said artifact inspection. Didn't say a damn thing about med bays." "Change of plans, sir." The corporal's tone cracked on plans. He tried to recover with a stiff nod, but sweat already traced lines down his temple. Reed studied him a beat longer, then sighed. Of course. He pocketed the toy soldier again and fell into step beside the boy. The corridors of Aurelia 7 stretched before them like arteries choked with plaque. Fluorescent lights flickered in endless stutter, illuminating peeling paint and ductwork that hummed like overworked lungs. The place reeked of desperation and budget cuts. Every viewport they passed showed a graveyard of decommissioned ships floating outside skeletal hulks, spinning in silence. Once proud warships, now tombstones. Reed could almost imagine the ghosts pressing against the glass, whispering their disappointment. They reached Medical Bay 3, and the noise hit him first, a dull, thrumming chaos far too loud for the sterile world he expected. The doors parted with a hiss. Inside, the space was stuffed. 40 people crammed into a chamber meant for 15 bureaucrats, sweating through expensive suits, military brass polishing metals that had never seen a battlefield, and enough armed security to storm a small moon. The smell of sweat, ozone, and antiseptic coiled together until Reed's stomach tightened. They stood in a semicircle around a surgical platform that looked older than half the crowd. The thing belonged in a museum, not an active facility. And then he saw him. Lieutenant Reed, Director Harmon, pushed forward, his smile slick as oil, his hairline propped up by an obvious weave job that glistened under the medical lights. Everything about the man screamed politics first, people second. He extended a hand like they were old drinking buddies. Perfect timing. We're about to make history. Reed didn't take the hand. Instead, he scanned the room, cataloging exits, distances, potential threats. His instincts itched. "Cut the crap, Harmon. My order said artifact inspection. This looks like a goddamn circus." "The artifact is biological," Harmon replied, his eyes glittering in the kind of way that made Reed's skin crawl. "A living specimen of the Saruman race." Reed's jaw tightened. "Impossible. The Sarumans are extinct. Have been for 15 years. "That's what we thought." Harmon gestured toward the platform with a flourish. "Until we found her." The crowd parted, and the world tilted under Reed's boots. She sat strapped to the surgical platform, wrists and ankles bound in humming mag cuffs, that sparked faint blue arcs against her violet skin. The light from overhead fixtures hit her body in cruel highlights, carving shadows across curves that seemed carved from alien marble. Pink hair cascaded in tangled waves past her shoulders, streaked dark in places with what could only be dried blood. But none of that was what caught him. It was her eyes. Amber gold, sharp and fragile, all at once locked on him from across the room. They were too human in a face that wasn't quite human, too alive for the word specimen. Jesus Christ. The words escaped before he could stop them. She's just a kid. She's a specimen! Another voice cut in, clinical sharp. Dr. Weiss emerged from behind a console, surgical glasses perched on the bridge of her nose. Approximately 23 years old by our estimates. The last of her kind, her regenerative abilities are beyond anything in our databases. And we, Harmon added, rubbing his hands together, are going to open her up and see how she ticks. Reed's stomach lurched. He took an involuntary step forward. Open her up. A simple vivisection, Weiss clarified, pulling up a holographic display of the girl's anatomy. Organs glowed in shifting layers of light. We'll start with a median incision. Separate the thoracic cavity. You're talking about cutting her in half. Reed's hand twitched toward his sidearm. While she's alive, Weiss said matter-of-factly, the regeneration only functions on living tissue. Dead samples are useless. Don't worry, she'll be sedated. Mostly. Reed's pulse thundered in his ears. The girl's head snapped up, then amber eyes finding his. Her lips trembled, cracked from dehydration, but the words came clear in accented English. You, please. Her voice rasped, raw from crying or screaming or both. Don't let them cut me. I'm alive. I dream too. The room froze. Every gaze turned to Lieutenant Jackson Reed, grandson of the legendary General Conrad Reed, the officer who had always followed orders, always done what was necessary for humanity. Reed saw the surgical tools laid out like medieval torture devices. He saw her wrists rubbed raw from struggling against the cuffs. He heard his sister's voice, faint but sharp in memory. You'll protect me, right? Harmon's smile faltered. Lieutenant, we're on a schedule. Give the order. Reed's boots echoed as he stepped forward. 1, 2, 3. His shadow stretched across the surgical platform until it merged with hers. He looked at the girl, then at the predators circling her like carrion birds. His throat burned, but the word tore free loud enough to suffocate stars. Wait! The silence after could have broken galaxies. Don't do it. And just like that, nothing would ever be the same again. The silence stretched like a taut wire. Every eye in the room pinned itself to Reed as if waiting for him to flinch. Director Harmon's smile twitched, then cracked into something uglier, his hand gesturing sharply to Dr. Weiss. Proceed. No one touches her, Reed said, voice cold as a gun barrel. His hand hovered just above his sidearm, not yet drawn but daring anyone to test him. Weiss blinked as if a man-defying procedure were an alien himself. Lieutenant, this is beyond your clearance. She's property. A specimen. She just told us she dreams. Reed snapped. That makes her more than property. That makes her a person. General Morrison stepped forward, his chest heavy with metals gleaming like cheap theater props. His voice was iron-dipped in ice. Your grandfather understood, the greater good, Lieutenant. He wouldn't hesitate. Conrad Reed would have given the order already. Reed's jaw clenched so tight it hurt. My grandfather isn't here. I am. And I'm invoking Section 47 of the Sentient Rights Protocol. The words detonated across the chamber. Even the hum of the medcuff seemed to falter. Harmon's face flushed crimson. Section 47, are you insane? That statute was written for hypothetical scenarios, for academic debate, not. It's law. Reed cut him off. Any officer may invoke a 24-hour stay on procedures involving potentially sentient beings. You want to dissect her, you'll have to explain to Galactic Command why you ignored their own code. Nobody moved. Security officers glanced at one another, their grips tightening on rifles. Some looked confused, others scared, none eager to be the first to test a Reed. This is a mistake, Harmon hissed, a career-ending mistake. Probably, Reed said, voice flat. He stepped closer to the platform, his shadow falling over the girl again. Cut her loose. For a moment, no one moved. Then from the back of the crowd, a young private stumbled forward. His hands shook as he reached for the cuffs. The maglocks hissed, disengaging one by one. The girl collapsed forward, boneless as a marionette with its strings cut. Reed caught her before she struck the steel. She weighed almost nothing fever hot against his palms. Her violet skin trembled under his touch. "Thank you," she whispered, English improving with each syllable. They, they were going to, not anymore. The crowd rippled back as if she carried a plague. Eyes widened, hands twitched toward weapons, but Reed kept his body between her and them. "Can you walk?" he asked quietly. She nodded, though her legs shook as if remembering months of chains. Reed slid an arm around her shoulders, half carrying, half guiding her. His jaw ached with the pressure of holding back rage. Morrison's voice cut through the tension, cold enough to freeze plasma. "You're making a grave error, Lieutenant. That thing is dangerous." Reed didn't slow. "Funny, she looks more scared than dangerous to me." "You have 24 hours, Harmon spat, every word dipped in venom. "Then we proceed as planned." Reed paused at the threshold, the weight of 40 hostile eyes drilling into his back. He looked over his shoulder, gaze hard enough to leave scars. "If anyone tries to circumvent the review process, I'll personally deliver you to a military tribunal." Clear. He didn't wait for an answer. The door hissed shut behind him, muffling the fury inside. The corridor stretched long and dim shadows pooling in corners like watchful predators. The girl Phyra he recalled from the file moved beside him with fragile grace, her hair brushing his shoulder, as if trying to anchor herself in something real. "Where are we going?" she asked, her voice still raspy but steadier now, a musical lilt beneath exhaustion. "Somewhere they can't find you," Reed muttered, scanning each intersection. His mind raced through possible hideouts the way a gambler rifled through bad cards. "Cargo Bay 7 is mostly abandoned. Should buy us time to figure this out." Her amber eyes studied him, far too sharp for someone who had spent half a year in a cage. "Why?" He frowned. "Why what? Why help me?" Her words held no accusation, only a raw confusion. "Your people want me dead. You don't know me." Reed tightened his grip on her arm as she stumbled, steadying her. "They don't want you dead. They want you dissected. There's a difference." "That's not an answer." He exhaled slowly, fingers brushing the toy soldier in his pocket. "You asked me not to let them. Simple as that." She gave a bitter little laugh, more sob than humor. "Nothing is simple. Tell me about it." The corridor narrowed into a maintenance tunnel pipe, sweating overhead, condensation dripping like slow rain. Their footsteps echoed in claustrophobic rhythm, and for the first time in years, Reed felt the weight of his uniform like shackles. "You'll lose everything for this," Phyra murmured after a while. "Already lost everything that mattered," Reed said before he could stop himself. The admission fell heavy between them, an echo of 20 years buried under silence. He touched the toy soldier again, feeling its familiar edges bite into his palm. "This is just the encore." They reached Cargo Bay 7. The air inside smelled of dust and rust, a graveyard for broken dreams. Shipping containers towered like tombstones, their faded hazard markings whispering of forgotten dangers. Reed guided her behind a stack labeled "Do Not Open" in bold red. "Home sweet home," he said dryly. He pulled off his jacket and draped it over her thin shoulders. She hugged it close, looking impossibly young, despite the alien glow of her skin. "They kept me in a white room," she whispered, curling into herself. "Always watching, always taking samples. No windows, no sky. How long?" Reed asked. 6 months, maybe 7. Hard to tell without days. Reed's throat tightened. "How'd they catch you?" Her fingers traced absent patterns in the dust. "I was looking for someone. My mother, she came here 20 years ago and never returned." A chill sank into Reed's bones. 20 years ago, the same year his sister disappeared. "She was an ambassador," Phyra continued softly. "A peace bringer. She believed humans and Saruans could work together." "What was her name?" "Lyra. Lyra of the Third Bloom." Her eyes brightened faintly like embers coaxed by wind. "Did you know her?" Reed's throat locked. He turned away too quickly, pretending to check the perimeter. 20 years ago, Aurelia 7 had been a research station. 20 years ago, Elena had vanished. 20 years ago, his world had collapsed. "I need to check something," he said abruptly, rising to his feet. Her voice caught him at the door. "I've been alone before. I'll survive. But Jack..." He paused. "Be careful," she whispered. "The shadows here, they have teeth." Reed slipped into the dim quarters again, the echo of her warning gnawing at him. Somewhere behind the rust and rot waited secrets tied to his sister, to Phyra's mother, to the sins Aurelia 7 had buried for 2 decades. And for the first time in years, Jack Reed felt the stirrings of something he had long buried beneath guilt and orders. Hope. The archives of Aurelia 7 had always been sealed tight, locked behind bureaucratic codes that discouraged curiosity. Most officers never tried to access them. After all, what use was there in digging through the corpses of old projects? But Lieutenant Jackson Reed was not most officers. He moved through the service corridors like a man navigating veins in the body of a dying beast. The walls sweated condensation and flickering lights painted him in sickly green glows. He kept his hand close to his weapon, but it wasn't the sound of boots behind him that gnawed at his nerves, it was memory. The toy soldier in his pocket felt heavier with every step, as though demanding he face what he had run from for 2 decades. The archive terminal waited in a cavernous room, rows of forgotten servers humming faintly like monks chanting in their sleep. Dust coated everything, disturbed only by the occasional maintenance drone scuttling through the gloom. Reed approached the central console, its screen flickering awake at his authorization. Computer, he ordered, his voice steady only through habit. Search records for Lyra Saruin visitor timeframe 20 years ago. The system whirred gears, grinding under the weight of command. Then with clinical precision, it answered, one match found. A file bloomed onto the screen. Reed's heart clenched. The photo was unmistakable: violet skin, pink hair, amber eyes that mirrored Phyra's like starlight reflected in dark water. Lyra of the third bloom. The mother-searching daughter, the ambassador who believed in peace. But it wasn't her face that stole his breath. It was the project name stamped across the record in cold, bureaucratic font. Project Synthesis. The words hit him like a plasma round. His knees almost buckled. He leaned against the console, forcing air into his lungs. He had heard whispers of synthesis, a rumor traded in war camps when the liquor was strong and the lights dim integration hybridization weapons, cloaked in the language of progress. But whispers were easier to dismiss than the truth staring back at him now. Open file. The system complied, spilling data across the screen, video logs, schematics, experiment notes. His eyes caught on the listed lead researcher, Dr. Elalina Reed, his sister. For a moment, the room spun. He remembered Elalina laughing in the backyard of their childhood home, her hair catching sunlight, her voice promising to protect him even though she was younger by 3 years. He remembered the night she disappeared, the soldiers who came to their door, the silence that fell over their family like a burial shroud. He had built his whole life on the belief she'd been taken, another victim of the war. But she hadn't been taken. She had volunteered. She had been one of them. Computer show videos. The screen shifted, and there she was. Elalina, older than he remembered, her posture stiff with authority, her face sharpened by ambition. She stood in a pristine lab, her hands clasped behind her back. Project Synthesis Day 72, she said, voice clinical, stripped of warmth. Initial integration trials between human and Saruin genetic markers show promising adaptation. Subject Lyra remains cooperative, unaware of full scope. The camera panned, revealing Lyra in a containment pod, violet skin, illuminated by bioluminescent veins. She smiled faintly, speaking words of hope, about unity, about bridging divides. Reed staggered back. His sister wasn't a prisoner. She was the warden. No! His fist slammed the console, spiderweb cracks blooming across the screen. No, no, no. But the video continued. Days bled into weeks. Reed watched Elalina grow harder, her eyes brighter, her reports filled with pride. Lyra's demeanor shifted from hope to confusion to terror as the procedures escalated. Incisions, injections, manipulations of her DNA. Always Elalina observing, always writing notes. Until one entry shattered him. Project Synthesis, Day 347. Elalina's tone faltered for the first time. Saruin DNA integration proceeding faster than projected. Subject's regenerative abilities have spread to me. She held up her hand. Veins glowed faint violet beneath her skin. Her eyes shimmered with alien light. She smiled, but the smile was wrong, stretched too tight. I am becoming her, she whispered. Or she is becoming me. Boundaries dissolving. Reed tore the drive from the console, downloading as much as he could before Harmon revoked his access. His hands shook with rage, grief, disbelief. His sister hadn't died as a victim. She had died a scientist drunk on progress, blind to the cost. And Lyra Phyra's mother hadn't simply vanished. She had been consumed. He stumbled from the archives like a man fleeing a grave, the files burning in his pocket heavier than any weapon he'd carried. The shadows whispered as he moved the station, groaning like it remembered every scream. Cargo Bay 7 loomed ahead, its rusted doors groaning open as he stepped inside. Phyra sat on the crate where he'd left her knees drawn to her chest, jacket wrapped tight around her slender frame. Her amber eyes lifted, and instantly she knew. She didn't need words. "You found her," she said softly. Reed froze. "How did you—" "Your face," she whispered. "It's like someone carved out your heart and left the hole bleeding." She rose, swaying on unsteady legs. "You found my mother's records." His voice scraped raw. She was part of something called Project Synthesis. Phyra's gaze did not waver. "And your sister?" The words were ash in his mouth. "Lead researcher." For a moment, silence reigned, filled only by the hum of forgotten machines. Then, to his shock, Phyra smiled, sad and beautiful. "I know you," she said. His hand twitched toward his weapon. "What? Did you think I came here by accident?" she asked, stepping closer. Her hand rose, palm hovering just above his chest over the heartbeat pounding like a war drum. "I knew they would capture me. I knew they would try to cut me open. I knew eventually they would summon the grandson of Conrad Reed." "You played me," he whispered, horror curling through him. No, her palm pressed lightly against his chest, warmth seeping through his uniform. "Your choice was real. Your compassion was real. But yes, I needed you specifically, because you are the only Reed who can access the Genesis archives, the real files, the truth of what happened to both our mothers." Reed staggered back, shaking his head. "This whole thing was never simple," Phyra said. Her amber eyes blazed sharp enough to cut steel. "And you, Jackson Reed, are the only one who might actually care enough to finish what they started, not with scalpels or genocide, but with choice." Before Reed could answer, alarms wailed across the station, bathing the cargo bay in crimson light. A voice boomed through the speakers, Harmon's voice thick with triumph. "Attention all personnel. Lieutenant Jackson Reed is hereby branded a traitor to humanity. The alien specimen is to be terminated on sight." Phyra's eyes widened. Reed's hand found his weapon. The shadows had grown teeth, and they were coming. The alarm shrieked like the station itself was screaming. Red lights strobed across Cargo Bay 7, casting Phyra's violet skin in violent shades of crimson and shadow. Reed shoved her behind a crate as bootsteps thundered closer. "They're coming," Phyra whispered, her voice trembling but not breaking. "They always are." Reed's pistol slid free with the ease of long practice. He scanned the bay, mapping exits, choke points, the shadows that would soon spit soldiers at him. They had maybe 30 seconds before Harmon's dogs swarmed the place. But the storm never arrived. Instead, the alarms cut short, replaced by a different voice, mocking, high-pitched, and carried on the PA as though it owned the station. "Attention, Aurelia 7. Schnip the Magnificent has arrived. Please do not all faint at once." Well, actually, fainting is acceptable if you insist on showing your admiration through collapse. Reed blinked. "What the hell?" Phyra's eyes widened. She tilted her head as if listening to a note only she could hear. "That's him." "Who?" "The one we need." Before Reed could press her, the shadows by the bulkhead rippled, and out stepped a figure that made Reed briefly question his sanity. Barely 3 feet tall, covered in shaggy purple fur, with eyes so large they seemed to swallow his face. The alien bounced into view like a child's toy that had wandered into a war zone. He threw his stubby arms wide. "Jackson Reed, grandson of genocide, Phyra Lass of the luminous Syrians, the galaxy's hottest fugitives right here in my humble presence. Autographs after the escape, please." Reed aimed his pistol square at the creature's forehead. "One more word and I ventilate you." The alien Schnip apparently froze, then grinned wider. A soldier's welcome. You wound me, sir. Not lethally, but emotionally, which is so much worse." Phyra touched Reed's arm. "Don't. He's not here for the bounty." "How do you know?" Her amber gaze didn't waver. "He smells like home." Reed had no idea what that meant, but he wasn't in the mood to debate olfactory metaphysics. The station's soldiers were still out there regrouping. He lowered his pistol, though every instinct screamed against it. "All right, Furball," Reed said. "Talk fast. Why are you here?" "Because I'm your ticket." "Ouch," Schnip said brightly. "I run Schnip's shuttle service, motto. We get you there alive or your money back." Terms and conditions may apply survival, not guaranteed void where prohibited by physics. Reed groaned. We're not customers. You are now. Schnipp produced 3 drinks from somewhere within his fur and handed them out like party favors. Reed ignored his, but Phyra took hers, sniffed, and smiled faintly. You knew my mother, she said. Schnipp froze mid-bounce. His enormous eyes shimmered. Knew her kid, she was my favorite drinking buddy. Well, she drank water and I drank everything else but semantics. He grew quiet, unusually so. She saved me once. I've been waiting 20 years to return the favor. Reed narrowed his eyes, and the cat. Schnipp's grin snapped back into place. Cat's just a teensy-weensy microscopic favor. See those gentlemen over there? He gestured toward the far side of the bay. 5 hulking humans stood waiting, muscles and tattoos stacked like warning labels. Weapons slung low but ready. They looked like someone had shaved gorillas, taught them to curse, and handed them plasma rifles. They Schnipp said, cheerfully, want me dead. Long story, minor debt, kidneys sold, twice boring details. But they'll let me live if my champions defeat them in tonight's comedy deathmatch. Reed's jaw dropped. Comedy. Deathmatch. Schnipp beamed. Exactly what it sounds like. 2 sides exchange jokes until someone breaks. Shows weakness, stops being funny. First defaulter dies. Simple. You're insane. Possibly, but also correct. And you two, my dazzling fugitives, are going to be my champions. No, Reed said flatly. Yes, Phyra said at the same time. Both men turned to her. I'm already dying, she said with a shrug. Might as well make it entertaining. Reed pinched the bridge of his nose. Unbelievable. Believable, Schnipp chirped. Come now, soldier boy, where's your sense of humor? You humans practically invented gallows jokes. This is just industrialized gallows humor. The gangsters were moving now, cracking knuckles like tectonic plates shifting. Schnipp waved Reed and Phyra toward a neon-lit doorway pulsing with bass music. Showtime, Schnipp announced. The arena was a nightmare hybrid of nightclub and slaughterhouse. Bloodstains on the walls were covered with holographic graffiti. Strobe lights flickered across cages filled with jeering spectators, smugglers, mercs, and scavengers, howling for blood and laughter in equal measure. The 5 gangsters waited in the center, each uglier than the last. Their leader grinned gold teeth, spelling pain. Schnipp, he rumbled, you brought champions. These 2, Schnipp declared, gesturing with theatrical flair. The legendary Jack Reed, killer of bureaucracy, and his beautiful alien companion, Phyra the specimen. The crowd roared, stomping metal floors until the air itself vibrated. Reed leaned close to Schnipp. If this goes sideways, I'm killing you first. Get in line, Schnipp whispered back. The gong sounded. Round 1. A gangster lumbered forward, sneering. A human and a purple freak walk into a bar. Bartender says, we don't serve your kind here. Human says, what assholes. He paused, clearly expecting laughs. Silence. That's your opener, Reed said. He cracked his neck. All right, what's the difference between my grandfather and a black hole? The crowd leaned in. A black hole only sucks in light. My grandfather sucks the joy out of entire solar systems. Scattered laughter. The gangster snarled. Phyra stepping forward, voice flat as steel. Why did the human scientist cross the road? Why? To dissect whatever was on the other side. The delivery was perfect, deadpan, alien, chilling. The crowd howled with delight. The match spiraled upward from there, each side slinging darker and darker humor like knives. Reed mined his survivor's guilt, talking about botched missions, paperwork that killed planets, soldiers broken by bureaucracy. Phyra followed sharper, crueler jokes about genocide and evolution, each word cutting deeper than plasma. How many humans does it take to commit genocide, she asked at one point. Her pause was perfectly timed. Just one with the right grandfather. The arena shook with laughter. Even Reed found himself staring, stunned by the venom hiding inside this fragile girl. But the gangsters were no slouches. They spat their own horrors jokes about orphans' cannibalism, the kind of trauma that made Reed's war stories feel like bedtime tales. Sweat slicked his brow. His pistol hand itched. The leader stepped forward for the killing blow, spinning an elaborate joke about orphans and meat grinders. It was cruel, it was brutal, and halfway through his voice cracked. Just enough. Break, Schnipp screamed, leaping from his hiding place. He broke. My champions win. The crowd erupted in chaos. booing, cheering fists pounding the rails. But the gangster wasn't finished. He ripped a plasma blade from his belt and lunged. To hell with rules, they die anyway. Reed's pistol cleared leather, but Phyra was faster. She caught the blade barehanded. Instead of severing her fingers, the weapon sputtered and died. Her skin began to glow, violet radiance flooding the arena. The gangster froze. Impossible. No, Phyra whispered, her voice carrying harmonics that made Reed's teeth ache. Just improbable. She pressed her palm against his chest. The man screamed, then gasped, then laughed as decades of illness vanished, tumors dissolved, scars, smooth pain erased. He collapsed to his knees, weeping. Phyra swayed, her glow flickering. Reed caught her before she hit the floor, her body fever hot, burning like a star in his arms. The gangsters backed away, fear in their eyes now. Take your prize and go, their leader rasped. Whatever she is, we want no part of it. Back in the shadows of the Nexus market, Schnip guided them to a hidden dock. The ship waiting there was held together by rust prayer and duct tape, but its engines purred with eager life. She needs medicine, Reed said, laying Phyra on a cot. Already prepared, Schnip said, softly producing a case of glowing crystals. Saruan healing stones. Last batch in existence, probably. Lyra gave them to me, said her daughter would need them someday. Reed crushed the crystals, mixing them with water and helping Phyra drink. Color slowly returned to her cheeks. That was stupid, he whispered. Had to try, she breathed, voice thin but steady. First time I healed hatred. Wanted to see if it worked. Her amber eyes found his burning, despite her weakness. It hurt, but it worked. Her hand brushed his cheek. Your turn next. All that guilt you carry. I'm fine. Liar. She smiled faintly. Beautiful liar, but still. Reed swallowed hard. For the first time since Aurelia 7, hope flickered inside him. Not certainty, not safety, but hope. And that was more dangerous than any gun. The stolen shuttle drifted free of Nexus Point's toxic orbit, its patched-together hull rattling like a cough. Reed sat at the pilot's seat, eyes locked on the darkness ahead, though his mind refused to quiet. Phyra slept fitfully on the cot behind him, her violet skin glistening faintly under the dim cabin lights. Schnip snored on the floor, curled into a ball of purple fur with an empty bottle clutched to his chest. For the first time in hours, silence reigned. But silence was rarely mercy. Reed's thoughts circled like vultures tearing into memories. He had tried to bury the image of his sister smiling from behind a laboratory glass wall, the revelation that she hadn't been stolen from him, but had chosen her work. And beneath it all, the echo of Phyra's words, you were always meant to be here. The comms array crackled. Reed stiffened. No one should have had their signal. He slammed the mute, tried to cut the feed, but the system locked into override. The face that filled the screen nearly stole his breath. Weathered, scarred eyes like sharpened steel. The man was older now, his hair silver where it remained, but his presence carried the weight of a fleet. General Conrad Reed, hero of the human species, butcher of a dozen worlds, his grandfather. Jackson, his voice rolled like distant thunder. You've disappointed me. Reed's mouth went dry. He had spent his entire life under this man's shadow, and now the shadow spoke back. Grandfather, he said evenly, though his heart pounded like artillery fire. I can explain. No need, Conrad said, leaning forward. You've chosen to harbor a dangerous specimen. That makes you an enemy of humanity. Reed's grip whitened on the controls. She's not a specimen. She's a person. Conrad's eyes hardened. She's a weapon, just like her mother was, just like all of them. The words dug into Reed like knives. Her mother came in peace. You slaughtered her people. I saved ours. Conrad's tone was flat final. I've seen entire worlds fall to their influence. Not with guns, not with fleets, just a touch. A whisper. A dream. You think their healing is a gift? It's infection. They reprogram DNA twist species into something else. Your sister discovered this firsthand. Reed's fist shook. Don't you dare talk about Elena. Oh, I'll do more than talk. She's in the files you stole. Every move you've made has been calculated aloud. Did you think you were clever? No, boy, you've been following the path I set 20 years ago. From the cot, Phyra stirred. Her eyes opened, amber, catching the glow of the console. You're wrong, she said, her voice thin but cutting through like a blade. My mother loved. She healed. You chose fear. Conrad's gaze slid to her, and for a heartbeat, something human flickered in his eyes. "Dear God," he whispered, "you look just like her." "Like who?" Phyra asked softly. "My mother or yours?" The mask cracked. For the first time, Conrad faltered. "Impossible. Elena died." But the words rang hollow. Schnip groaned awake, blinking blearily at the screen. His fur bristled instantly. "You," he spat. Conrad's eyes sharpened. "Hello, Marcus." The name fell like a grenade. Reed stared between them. "Marcus." Schnip's fur puffed out. "Don't call me that." Conrad ignored him. "Did you really think I wouldn't recognize my own son, even after the surgeries? Even after you butchered yourself to look like one of them?" Silence choked the cabin. Reed's mind reeled. Schnip, loud, ridiculous, irreverent. Schnip, his uncle, his grandfather's son. No, Schnip whispered, eyes wide, tears brimming. "My father died in the resistance. My mother told me." "Your mother lied," Conrad said, voice suddenly soft, almost tender. "As humans do. She tried to turn you into one of them, to corrupt you. I loved her, Marcus. I loved you, but you were poisoned by their touch." Schnip's shoulders shook. He laughed, brittle and sharp. 20 years of jokes, 20 years of pretending I wasn't broken, and it turns out I'm just another Reed family tragedy. Fantastic. Absolutely hilarious. Reed felt like the air had been punched from his lungs. His grandfather, his uncle, his sister, Phyra's mother. Every thread of blood and history knotted into a noose around his throat. "You see," Boy Conrad's voice thundered, now iron again. "This is what happens when you let them near us. They twist, they taint. Your sister thought she could control it. She failed. Marcus here hid in shadows, ashamed of what he is. And now you," his eyes narrowed, burning into Reed's skull, "you've thrown away your career, your name, your species for a specimen." Reed leaned forward, his jaw set. "For a person, for someone who dreams. That dream will kill us all. Then let it try." For a moment, the cabin vibrated with silence, thick and suffocating. Then the screen flickered, and Conrad leaned back into the shadows of his warship's command chair. "1 hour," he said. "Return to the coordinates I'll transmit. Surrender the girl, or I bring the fleet, and I will burn you from the stars." The transmission cut. The silence that followed was worse than the alarms. Schnip staggered to his feet, laughing and crying all at once. "Fantastic family reunion, huh? We should do this more often. Get matching shirts." Reed's. "We break everything we touch." "Shut up," Reed snapped, though the words had no heat. He pressed his palms to his eyes, trying to steady his breathing. "God damn it." Phyra sat upright on the cot, her face pale but her eyes blazing. "He's wrong. Your grandfather. About my people. About me." Reed looked at her, searching for certainty and finding only fire. "And if he's right," he whispered, "then let me prove him wrong." Her words settled into him like anchors steadying the storm. He exhaled slowly, then checked the shuttle systems. They were already half dead, patched together with Schnip's duct tape engineering. Against a fleet, they didn't stand a chance. But maybe, just maybe, they didn't need to run. "Gear up," Reed said finally, his voice low, dangerous. "If Conrad wants a family reunion, let's give him one." Phyra smiled faintly, though exhaustion trembled at the edges of her expression. "About time." Schnip muttered something about needing a drink, but his hands were already moving over the console faster than Reed would have expected from the clownish little alien. Outside the viewport, distant lights began to gather. Conrad's fleet, the hammer of humanity, poised above them. And for the first time in his life, Jack Reed prepared to aim it back at his own blood. The void outside the viewport churned with pinpricks of light, Conrad Reed's fleet sliding into position. Dozens of ships, steel predators glinting against the abyss. They moved with the precision of a predator closing jaws around its prey. Inside the shuttle, the air was tight, too thin for breath. Reed's fingers gripped the controls, though he knew piloting wouldn't save them. Phyra sat upright despite her weakness, her glow dim but steady. Schnip hunched at the co-pilot's station, fur bristling, lips pressed into a thin, uncharacteristic line. Even he wasn't joking now. "They're blocking every escape," Vector, Reed muttered. "We can't outrun them." Schnip gave a grim chuckle. "We couldn't outrun guilt either, soldier boy. But here we are, trying anyway." The comms hissed before Reed could answer. Conrad's voice filled the shuttle, cold and absolute. "Your time is up. But even as the words rolled through the speakers, something else happened. The fleet lights flickered. One ship's beacon went dark, then another. Then an entire wing collapsed into blackness as though swallowed by a shadow that wasn't there a second ago. Reed leaned forward, eyes narrowing. What the hell? The stars themselves seemed to warp. Light bent, space screamed, and then it appeared. A mass of light in flesh and wrongness flowing like liquid fire across the hulls of Conrad's fleet. Faces surfaced and dissolved within it. Elalena's Lyra's strangers. Reed didn't recognize all merging, all whispering in harmony. Limbs sprouted, dissolved, reformed as tendrils that wrapped around entire frigates like toys. Synthesis. Phyra gasped, her body trembling as if the creature's presence resonated in her blood. Mother, she whispered, and someone else. Reed's chest tightened. He recognized his sister's eyes in the writhing glow, bright and feverish, filled with hunger and sorrow. The comms filled with a new voice, not Conrad's, not Lyra's, not Elalena's, but something born from them both. A dozen tones blended male and female, human and alien, old and young. My family, it crooned. My beautiful broken family, together at last. Every hair on Reed's body stood on end. His instincts screamed run, but there was nowhere to run. Conrad's flagship loomed closer, its weapons glowing hot, but for the first time the general's voice carried strain. Containment failed. Again. You tried to burn me, Synthesis said, laughter bubbling like oil. But I am very hard to kill. Just ask the worlds I've touched, the species I've improved. Improved, Reed spat. You mean corrupted. Synthesis's tendrils brushed across the viewport light and flesh crawling like veins of fire. Such limited thinking. Still trapped in binaries, human or alien, good or evil. The truth is more beautiful. Unity, oneness. No more loneliness, no more pain. Phyra pushed herself to her feet, her glow building to match the creature's pulse. You're the reason they fear us. You're the nightmare in their stories. The mass turned toward her, and for the first time its many faces softened. And you, daughter, are my greatest creation. Human will, Saruan power, and something new. The ability to choose what others become. I don't want that, Phyra hissed. I want choice, my own. Want is irrelevant. The mass spread wider, its light washing across the shuttle. You are the bridge. Through you both species will unite. No more war, no more hatred, only family. Slavery, Conrad growled through the comms. You'd make us all slaves to your vision. Family Synthesis countered. One of its faces coalesced into Elalena's, pale and trembling. Isn't that what you always wanted, Father? The family together again? Reed's heart lurched. His sister's face, older, harder, unrecognizable, yet undeniably hers, looked straight at him. Jacket whispered, broken. I tried to fix it. I thought I could control it. I was wrong. No, Reed muttered, shaking his head. His pistol felt small, useless in his grip. You're gone. She's gone. Not gone, Synthesis said. Evolved. The mass pulsed, preparing to strike. Reed shoved Phyra behind him. Stay back! The shuttle rattled as tendrils slammed against its hull. Sparks rained down from the consoles. Alarm screamed. Schnipp lurched to his feet, laughter bubbling out of him in manic bursts. It's so funny, he gasped. All this destiny crap, and you forgot the punchline. What are you talking about? Reed shouted. The joke, Schnipp spread his tiny arms, his glow shifting from violet to crackling white. The virus that started everything. It wasn't Elalena's. It was mine. Synthesis froze, tendrils twitching mid-strike. Lies. Nope, Schnipp's grin widened, though tears streaked his fur. I was 5. Playing with Mom's genetics kit. Made a funny virus that made people laugh. Except it didn't just make them laugh, it made them change. She covered for me. Said it was her fault. Started Project Synthesis to fix it. And look how that turned out. Reed's mind reeled. His uncle. The clown. The mistake that had killed millions. Schnipp's glow intensified, white fire burning through his fur. Impossible is my morning coffee. I'm a human Saruan hybrid raised by rebels, trained by criminals, hiding as a comic so the mutation stayed stable. But you, his laughter cracked into rage. You're just the infection, grown fat. Synthesis writhed, destabilizing. Doesn't matter, the girl will still choose. She will complete what we began. Phyra stepped forward, shaking but unafraid. Her amber eyes blazed like stars. You never understood. Choice is what makes us human, or heroine, or whatever comes next. And I choose. Her glow erupted, not violent like synthesis, but warm, washing through the shuttle in waves. Reed felt it in his bones, his scars, the guilt clinging like tar. For the first time in 20 years, he felt lighter. No synthesis shrieked faces contorting in rage. You cannot reject unity. I don't reject it, Phyra said, voice breaking into a harmony that matched the creature's. I forgive it. She reached forward, her small hand pressing against the mass. Light detonated. For a heartbeat, Reed thought they'd all died. Instead, the light sang, not screaming, not consuming singing, a harmony of voices, of memories of love twisted but not broken. Reed saw Elena laughing as a child, Lyra smiling with hope, Conrad cradling a newborn Marcus before fear ruined him. He saw his own younger self promising to protect his sister. When the light faded, synthesis was gone. In its place stood two women, separate, solid, breathing. Elena, Lyra, alive. Reed stumbled forward, unable to believe his eyes. Ellie, his sister's eyes filled with tears. Oh God, Jack, I'm so sorry. I tried to fix it. I made it worse. He pulled her into his arms, 20 years of loss shattering in a single embrace. Lyra knelt beside Phyra, her violet skin dim but whole. My daughter. My bridge. Conrad's voice crackled over the comms, not commanding now, but raw. End it. No more lies, no more hunting. The war is finished. Outside the viewport, his fleet powered down, weapons cooling like fading embers. Inside the shuttle, a family broken, twisted, impossible, took its first breath together. But the glow on Phyra's skin dimmed her body, collapsing into Reed's arms, fever hot and burning out. I told you, she whispered weakly. I excel at dying. Reed held her tight, his heart splitting. Not this time. Not ever again? The shuttle smelled of ozone and smoke, its consoles sparking faintly where tendrils of synthesis had scarred the hull. Jack Reed sat on the floor, his arms wrapped around Phyra's limp body. Her breath came shallow, ragged, each inhale a gamble. Violet skin burned hot against his chest, and he could feel the pulse of her energy fading. Stay with me, he whispered, clutching her tighter. Damn it, don't you quit on me now. Her eyelids fluttered, amber eyes dimming like a dying star. Already. Told you, she rasped, lips twitching in something that might have been a smile. Dying's what I do best. Not funny, Reed growled. His throat burned with helpless rage. You don't get to make jokes about this. I learned from Schnip, she murmured, a weak giggle escaping before her breath hitched into silence. Hey, Schnip barked, his fur bristling with indignation. He crouched beside them, glowing faintly white from the power still seeping through him. His huge eyes shimmered with tears he refused to acknowledge. Nobody dies on my watch, not unless they paid in advance, and she definitely didn't pay. Can you help her? Reed demanded, desperation sharp in his voice. Schnip's ears flattened. I'm funny, not magic. Whatever she did back there, splitting two people out of one abomination, burned through her core like a bonfire in a matchbox. Lyra's hand touched her daughter's forehead. The ambassador's face glowed with both pride and heartbreak. She carries too much. Both human will and heroine compassion. It will tear her apart if she doesn't learn balance. Elena hovered nearby, her own skin faintly tinted with violet guilt etched into every line of her face. She needs rest. Healing stones, perhaps. Time. We don't have time, Reed snapped. Conrad's not going to just walk away. You know him. He'll call this a retreat, but the man doesn't stop until he wins. Until we're ash. As if summoned by his words, the comms flared again. Conrad's face appeared across the cracked screen eyes, burning like old coals. I gave you a chance, the general said, his voice low and deadly. 1 hour, I see you've wasted it. You saw what happened, he raged, shot back, standing with Phyra in his arms. Synthesis is gone. The war is over. Gone, Conrad barked, a laugh devoid of humor. You fool. You think light and flesh simply vanish, no? It lingers. It infects. You carry it even now. His eyes darted to Phyra, then to Schnip, then finally to Elena. You're all infected, a family of plagues. Reed's fists tightened. You're wrong. She chose. She ended it. She chose nothing, Conrad snarled. She's too weak to fight what's inside her. And when it awakens again, it will consume not just you, but entire worlds. Then let me prove you wrong, Phyra whispered, her voice fragile but cutting through like a blade of glass. Conrad's gaze sharpened on her. For a moment, his iron mask cracked, and Reed saw something flicker fear. You'll prove nothing, the general said, because I'm ending this now. The flagship's weapons lit up across the viewport, the glow of annihilation charging. Reed's gut twisted. He had seconds to choose: run, fight, or surrender. Then Phyra pushed herself from his arms, swaying but standing, her glow building again. No, she said simply. Everyone froze, even Conrad. Her amber eyes locked on her grandfather's image. You think my power is corruption? That what I carry is a plague? You think it's slavery or extinction? But you've forgotten the simplest truth. And what truth is that, Conrad hissed. That I choose. The glow exploded from her, filling the shuttle with radiance. It wasn't the invasive force of synthesis or the cold fire of Conrad's command. It was warm, fierce, alive. Reed staggered back as visions slammed into him. His sister Elena laughing as a child, not the scientist drunk on ambition. Lyra holding her newborn daughter, whispering lullabies of peace. Conrad as a young man before metals, and fear hardened him, standing at a graveside and swearing he would never let humanity fall. The glow spread to Schnip, and he saw himself as Marcus, a boy with too much power, terrified and hiding behind jokes, desperate to belong. He collapsed to his knees, sobbing, laughter and grief tangled together. This is who we are, Phyra said, her voice ringing with harmonics that vibrated in every bone. Not weapons, not specimens, not plagues. We are choice. We are family. Broken, yes, but family still. Conrad's image flickered, his iron composure breaking under the weight of the light. You dare lecture me? After all I've sacrificed. You sacrificed love for fear, Phyra said, stepping closer to the screen, her glow blazing. You sacrificed peace for war. You sacrificed your own blood to keep a galaxy afraid. Her voice softened, trembling now. I forgive you. The silence that followed was unbearable. Reed felt his chest tighten, tears burning his eyes. No, Conrad whispered, shaking his head. Forgiveness is weakness. It's human, Phyra replied. And Saruman, and whatever comes next, forgiveness is the only power stronger than fear. Conrad's hand hovered over the kill command, trembling. His eyes locked on hers, and for the first time in Reed's life, the general looked lost. Father Elena said quietly, stepping into the view beside Phyra. Her violet-tinged skin glowed faintly. I forgive you too. Lyra placed her hand on Phyra's shoulder, her voice soft but steady. And so do I. Schnip snorted wetly through his tears. Hell, even I forgive you, old man, though I'll still make jokes about it for the next 50 years. The silence cracked. Conrad's hand fell away from the controls. His shoulders sagged under the weight of decades. The war, he rasped, the war is over. Reed stared, barely daring to breathe. But Phyra swayed violently, then her glow flickering like a candle in a storm. Reed lunged, catching her as she collapsed, her body burning fever hot. No, stay with me, he begged, holding her close. Her eyes fluttered open, weak but still blazing with that impossible light. I choose to live, she whispered, and then she went limp. Reed's heart stopped. Behind him, Elena and Lara rushed forward. Schnip scrambled with the healing stones. Conrad's image flickered on the screen, his face carved by guilt and awe. And in the center of it all, Jack Reed clutched the dying alien girl who had become the axis of his broken universe. His sister's voice echoed in memory. You'll protect me, right? This time he would not fail. Not again. The morning alarm wasn't what woke Jack Reed. It was the sound of his daughter trying to heal the toaster. Mira, sweetheart, Jack groaned, dragging himself out of bed, his hair sticking up like an unruly flag of defeat. He stumbled into the kitchen, barefoot, squinting at the faint violet glow seeping from the counter. We talked about this. The toaster pulsed with organic light, sprouting twitching filaments where slots for bread used to be. It hummed softly, almost like it was purring. Machines don't purr. But it was sad. 5-year-old Mira said, her small hands glowing as she stroked the living appliance. Her amber eyes shimmered with the same dangerous, beautiful power her mother carried. It kept burning the bread. That's because your brother put gum in it, Jack muttered. Did not, came a voice from the next room. A boy's head poked through the wall, literally through the wall. 7-year-old Marcus Jr.'s body flickered between solid and translucent, a byproduct of his unstable hybrid genetics. He grinned sheepish and guilty all at once. Okay, maybe a little, Jack sighed. MJ, what have I told you about phasing through structural supports? That it's dangerous and irresponsible, the boy recited, but also kinda awesome. Before Jack could retort, another wail filled the air. The baby. Phyra entered looking far too composed for someone cradling a 3-month-old who sparkled faintly with stardust. Her violet skin had softened with age, but still shone, and her amber eyes carried that same fire that had saved them all. She handed their daughter into Jack's arms with the calm precision of a seasoned warrior handing off a grenade. Your turn, she said sweetly. The infant Lelena, named for the aunt Jack had lost and found again, blinked up at him with eyes that already seemed too deep for an infant's. Purple irises shimmered with strange quantum signatures that scientists whispered about but couldn't categorize. She giggled, then promptly vomited shimmering stardust across Jack's shirt. Okay, Jack muttered, patting her back. That's new. Not new, Lyra said, stepping into the kitchen from the garden beyond. Time had left her skin lined but luminous, her presence as steady as the first day she'd walked into the lab 2 decades ago. Sarowan babies often expel excess energy this way. It means she's strong. She's not full, Kerwin. Lelena countered, entering from the other side, still half a scientist despite the streaks of violet in her veins. She carried a tablet already covered in scrolling genetic sequences. She's a 3-way hybrid with markers I don't even recognize. Unprecedented. Dangerous. Unprecedented in ours, Phyra said sharply. Jack exhaled, bouncing the baby gently as the 2 women glared at each other. Can we please save the science lecture until after breakfast? The hollow screen in the corner chose that moment to flare to life, displaying the beaming, wide-eyed face of Schnip, or Marcus, or Schnip. Jack had long since stopped trying to separate the two. Good morning, Galaxies, Schnip's voice roared, echoing through the house. He stood on a massive stage somewhere in the capital, crowds of humans, Sarowans and hybrids, howling with laughter at his latest set. So the human says to the Sarowan, "Why do you glow when you're happy?" And the Sarowan says, "Why do you destroy planets when you're shit-mad?" The crowd erupted. The ticker at the bottom of the broadcast scrolled with Scandal Peace Council threatened censure of Schnip's controversial satire. They threaten him every week, Phyra muttered, sipping tea. He's untouchable. Untouchable and unbearable, Jack added, though a small smile tugged his lips. As if on cue, Schnip's hollow fizzled into their kitchen. He winked, still glowing faintly from his performance. Speaking of unbearable, how's my favorite dysfunctional family? Busy, Jack said, rocking the baby. And radioactive, apparently. Oh, radioactive's fine, Schnip said cheerfully. I knew a guy once who glowed in the dark. Made him popular at parties. Until he exploded. Comforting, Jack muttered. Conrad's voice rumbled from the walls. The general no longer lived in flesh, but in circuits, his consciousness uploaded into the home's AI after the war ended. His presence was constant, watchful, sometimes nagging, always iron. Children, Conrad said gravely, stop modifying household appliances. The toaster squealed. Mira giggled. See, Schnip said smugly. Even the ghost agrees. I am not a ghost, Conrad intoned. You haunt us, you complain, you give unsolicited advice, Schnip said. If it quacks like a ghost. Jack cut in quickly. Any tactical advice, grandfather? Let them punch each other until they're tired, Conrad said without hesitation. Then offer cookies. Cookies. Jack raised a brow. It's what Elena used to do with you and Marcus when you were children. Jack blinked, looking at his sister. I wasn't that bad. You once declared war over a toy soldier, Elena said flatly. Jack grimaced. That was different. No, Lyra said softly, smiling faintly. It really wasn't. Their laughter, real laughter, not the brittle kind, filled the kitchen, bouncing off walls that had once echoed with silence. Through the window, the city stretched outward. Human skyscrapers entwined with Sarowan bioruptures. Streets filled with markets where hybrid children played together without fear. Ships from a dozen worlds landed at the port, ambassadors arguing in council chambers. Merchants shouting over trade. Peace wasn't perfect. It was messy, loud, frustrating. But it was alive. Jack kissed his daughter's forehead, breathing in her impossible warmth. Think it'll last? He asked softly. Nothing lasts forever, Conrad said through the walls, his tone softer than Jack had ever heard it. But that doesn't mean we stop building. Jack looked at his impossible family. Phyra's tired smile, Lyra's steady grace, Elena's restless curiosity, Schnip's absurd grin, his children glowing and phasing and laughing. Perfection's boring anyway, Elena added, finally setting her tablet aside. I prefer impossible. Impossibly loud, Lyra muttered, as MJ phased through the ceiling, chasing Mira, who was wielding the toaster like a weapon. Schnip winked. Best kind of loud. Trust me, I do stand up. Despite everything, the scars, the losses, the weight of what they carried, Jack laughed. A deep, unshackled laugh he hadn't felt in decades. Because for the first time in a galaxy fractured by a war, the Reed family human, Keru, and hybrid monster Miracle was together. Not perfect. Better. Chosen.